Welcome to the history of the queer. Today we travel to Uganda centuries before British rule to meet a king whose love for another man was so great, it was later rewritten, silenced, and branded as sin. But history remembers. This is the story of King Mwanga II of Buganda, the last free king before the empire fell. The king who loved men, Mwanga II of Buganda. The year was 1884. Buganda, a powerful African kingdom, ruled the Great Lakes region. At just 18 years old, Mwanga II inherited the throne. He was young, impulsive, and beautiful, but above all, human. And like many kings before him, Mwanga had lovers. But unlike his ancestors, his lovers were men. The Palace of Shadows. In the royal palace, male pages served Mwanga young courtiers who attended to his every need. They dressed him, guarded him, and sometimes shared his bed. In pre-colonial Buganda, this wasn't unusual. Same-sex intimacy existed quietly within royal circles, not as a scandal but as a private expression of power and affection. But things were changing. Missionaries had arrived preaching a strange new word: sin. They saw Mwanga's court not as love, but as corruption, and the tension between African tradition and European morality was about to explode. The fire of faith. When Mwanga learned that some of his pages newly converted to Christianity refused to serve him, he saw it as betrayal. To him, it wasn't just about religion, it was about loyalty, power, and a love that the missionaries could never understand. In 1886, the conflict turned deadly. 26 Christian converts, many of them his former companions, were executed on Mwanga's orders. The church later canonized them as the Uganda martyrs. Mwanga became history's villain. But lost beneath that narrative is a more complex truth that he was also a young man, caught between two worlds: his own culture that once accepted him, and a foreign religion that condemned him. The fall of a king. Mwanga's defiance made him an enemy of both colonizers and missionaries. He was dethroned, exiled, and eventually captured by the British, the same empire that would go on to criminalize homosexuality across Africa with Section 162 and 165 laws. In exile, Mwanga wrote bitterly about betrayal and loss. He died young, but his story refused to die with him, because buried in the ashes of that kingdom was the truth that love between men had always existed in Africa long before it was ever called unnatural. Epilogue. History calls him a tyrant, but the truth is more human: a boy king who lived in a time when African love met European shame, and only one was allowed to survive. Today, queer Ugandans still live in fear, but they also live in defiance, carrying forward the legacy of a king who dared to love in the open. Because queerness is not foreign to Africa. It was here in palaces, villages, temples, and songs long before anyone came with a Bible or a law book. King Mwanga's story reminds us they can rewrite history, but they can't erase the truth.